Kiwi 102.2 Auckland. The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Phil Goff.
Leader of the Labour Party, it is Phil Goff this morning. Good morning to you, Phil.
Good morning, Wammo.
Good morning. Now, I don't really want to go into the details of what's been reported over the weekend because I think that's it's all rather irrelevant. What I do want to talk about, Phil, is the fact that your family has been dragged into the public forum with something that involving your daughter. I thought that there was some kind of rule going on with journalists where they don't drag politicians' families into the public arena with things like this?
Well, you'd hope so. Throughout my political career, I've never brought the families of other politicians into it, both because it's unfair to those families. It's the politician that makes the decision to go into public life, not their kids or not even their spouse. And they don't deserve any different treatment from anybody else, no special privileges and no undue intrusion into their lives. There was, I don't know what was behind this, but stuff was sent around a variety of media outlets. Those that had some sense of standard, I guess, just left it alone, and one paper chose not to. And, naturally, all of us are protective of our families. I'm proud of my kids. They're good kids. They have and will make mistakes in life. But I don't want to bring them into a situation where they come under what ends up as a really disproportionate pressure for anything that they might do wrong in life.
And that's the thing. It is that's what it comes down. Disproportionate pressure, isn't it? And it also, I was very surprised to see this article on the weekend, but from the person who wrote it, I wasn't surprised at all.
Yes, that's been commented to me by a lot of people, and most of them journalists.
Yeah, and it's an obvious smear campaign.
Well, it could well be. Look, I don't know what was behind it, but I just know that somebody made extraordinary efforts to try to do this to embarrass me. Well, I'm not embarrassed by my kids. I love my kids. But I do really regret that you'd put anybody through this for something they weren't even convicted of. That just seems to me to be unfair. I know it's happened to other people in political life, but I think most Kiwis would understand this situation. Every one of us who have had a family know that our kids make mistakes from time to time. We just hope they learn from their mistakes.
And basically, you've had enough trouble as it is with your own caucus.
Well, there's that other family called my Labour Parliamentary Caucus, but I think we've finally sorted that one.
Well, okay, have you sorted Chris Carter?
Yeah, look, Chris went through a pretty difficult couple of weeks himself, but I'd made it absolutely clear to him that he needed to understand where the public was at on this sort of thing. We're talking about expenditure of public money. A lot of people out there, they're paying their tax, they're having difficulty making ends meet. They've got to have absolute assurance that the parliamentarians and ministers spend their money wisely and do so within the rules. Now, the amount of money wasn't big in terms of Chris's credit card, and there were things that you could debate one way or the other on it. But the fact of the matter is, and Chris has acknowledged it, when he was a minister, too often he put his hand up to say that he would go on a trip. He was seen to travel too often, to take his partner with him too often. And he needed to acknowledge that. He needed to acknowledge where the public was at. I sent him home to think about that for a week. He did so. I said, look, now you've got to front up to the media, go down to Wellington, front up to the Parliamentary Gallery, and answer any questions they have. I didn't tell him what to say. If he didn't know what to say for himself, then there wouldn't have been a point. But I listened to the tape of his interview, and I think that he's got it. And he's made that acknowledgement. That's what I required of him, and now he'll need to demonstrate that he's going to be working hard and working hard at his portfolio. I know he is a hard worker. He does a great job in ethnic affairs. He's good for his electorate, but he's got to re-win public confidence.
But he didn't shed a tear, Phil. That's what the public want. They want want crying. I mean, that's what we've come to expect when it comes to public figures giving apologies.
Yeah, well, they say all the world's a stage, but, I think people have got to be what they are rather than simply putting on a performance. And believe me, I think anybody that watched that episode a couple of weeks ago would have seen the strain that situation created for Chris. That was partly self-inflicted. I was tough on him, but then I think the public has a right to expect party leaders to demand of their members that they reach the required standards of behaviour and of transparency and accountability. That's what I required of all of my members of Parliament, and the consequences were that 3 of them were demoted in terms of their seating and in terms of their portfolio responsibilities.
Onto a bit of news that broke at the end of last week, the fact that uranium exports are regularly routed through New Zealand ports. Now, apparently you were unaware of this.
Yeah, apparently there was what it is it's a transshipment. The stuff's never unloaded here, but it comes out of Adelaide through Auckland and then up through the Pacific. Apparently there was about one shipment a year at the point that I was minister. Never came across my desk, was never raised with me by the media, by interest groups or anybody else. Now they've stepped that up and it's more frequent. I think New Zealanders have got the right to demand 2 things. One, that there is adequate safety around the uranium ore concentrate. It's not a high-risk substance, but it is a hazardous material. And like any other hazardous material or chemical, there's got to be rules around it, and the Environmental Risk Management Agency is doing that. I think the other assurance that New Zealanders would want was that none of this material was being used for the production of enriched uranium for nuclear weaponry. Look, we don't have nuclear power here, Wammo, but we don't stand in the way of other countries having nuclear power. That's a decision that they've got to make. If it's for peaceful purposes, then I don't think there's a big issue about it being transshipped. If it were for weapons of mass destruction, then there would be an issue because it would be contrary to our legislation and our values. But I've seen no evidence that it is being used for that purpose.
Phil Goff, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Wammo. Good to talk to you, mate.
Cheers.
Catch you next week.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff. Here is the Eastern